views expressed here are those of our hosts and guest speakers and do not represent the Uniformed Services University, the Department of War, or the Henry M. Jackson Foundation for the Advancement of Military Medicine, Incorporated. We are back with another episode of Check Your Six Pack, a veteran podcast done in conjunction with the Center for the Study of Traumatic Stress and Uniformed Services University. I am really excited to introduce our two guests, or at least let them introduce themselves. This is Mr. Ben Owen and his wife, Jessica. Amazing people with an incredible story, and they do some remarkable work today. Guys, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure thing. My name is Ben Owen. I'm a daddy to 8 kids, barely an Army vet, founder of We Fight Monsters, and the owner of Black Rifle Company, not to be confused with the coffee company.
And I'm Jessica Owen with We Fight Monsters, and I'm just a veteran of the streets.
Veteran of the streets. I love it. We really appreciate you guys traveling all the way here to be with us. And, let's get right into it. This podcast is... we're doing this to kind of help people, help people struggle with problematic behavior, right? Specifically alcohol here. Can you kind of tell me a little bit about your experiences with that?
Good gracious. Alcohol's... I had my first drink at 13. By 15, I was locked up against my will for the first time. And it was... rehab. When you're a minor, your parents can kind of do whatever they want with you. I guess I was actually 14. I had absolutely no desire to be in there. In fact, I wanted to continue drinking, so I ran away from this place. We lived in California at the time. I turned a 10-day stay into 90 days, and eventually the facility got sick of me, so they shipped me off to one of these places in Utah that they just made a Netflix documentary about.
You were an overachiever.
I've always, if I do something, I'm going to the wall with it every time. And I think the first time I really learned that about myself was with alcohol.
Yeah. You have an all or nothing personality.
It's all or nothing. And obviously later in life that led to dope, but we can get into that later. But I come from, I guess, a long line of alcoholics. My mom's parents died from complications from alcoholism. In fact, her dad, he died when I was 6. He passed out on a space heater.
No kidding.
Yeah, and my dad found him.
Oh, wow.
But my parents didn't really talk about that until like way later in life. And then, when I started going through DTs, I don't know if you know this, but if you're physically, chemically dependent on alcohol and you don't have alcohol, it can kill you.
Yeah.
You go into something called delirium tremens. So when I started going into that, like at 19, my parents started telling me a little bit more about the family history. Apparently, my mom's grandfather died in DTs in a jail cell. But like by the point in time I started learning all of this about my genetics, it was way too late,
Sure.
man. I was hopelessly, very chemically, emotionally, physically, spiritually, metaphysically, all of the lees addicted to alcohol. It was my solution for everything. If I didn't like the way I felt, I knew I could change it instantaneously by having a drink. And it's socially acceptable to do that.
Yeah.
And that's a sad thing.
Yeah. Alcohol is so incredibly pervasive and encouraged in our country, in the military community, in the veteran community. It is a really easy way to run from or hide from things that we should be facing head on. I want to hear your story, Jessica, and then I have another question that I'm going to hit you guys with right after, but I'm going to surprise you with it, okay?
Okay.
I like surprises.
Well, my journey with alcohol was a little bit different than Ben's because I didn't really have a huge problem with alcohol, but my life was destroyed like twice by alcohol. Once in my childhood with my mother, who was a raging alcoholic, very violent alcoholic. So from like early childhood, about 9 or 10, like my mom would go to work, she'd come home, she'd get drunk, and she would just beat us. Yeah. And, I was going to school sometimes I learned how to do makeup very early because I would have to like cover up the bruises and stuff. And then her alcohol addiction later on led to a crack addiction. And a lot of people don't know this, but there's actually only one drug that can be made inside your body, which is cocaethylene. Isn't that what it's called, Ben? Yes,
it's the
cocaethylene.
only drug that you can't buy on the streets. You have to synthesize it in your body.
No
and it's-
kidding.
Which is when it's crack and alcohol together inside your body, it creates a drug called cocaethylene. So that's what my mom was addicted to. So it was just crack and alcohol. So so we had no money because all the money went to crack, and then we were beat a lot. So it was just a fucked up childhood.
Yeah.
And alcohol started all of that. So I knew I never wanted to touch alcohol because I didn't want to be like that. But it did create like this this ripple effect, where I just, at age 12, I started using drugs. I wanted to numb myself. Like,
Yeah.
I just didn't want to feel after going through that. And a 12-year-old, that's still a very small child. So,
Yeah.
so I grew up just trying to numb myself. So that started my drug addiction. And then I got with Ben, and Ben was a raging alcoholic. So I had to go through. He never beat me, so that's a good thing. But it got really dicey there for a minute.
So yeah, very different stories, and that's actually great. I'm glad you opened up with that because I want to know what similarities between you two. I mean, I'm sure you talk about this at length, like for what you do as a day job. Despite the fact that the stories are different, what I've found is that most of us that have struggled with this problematic behavior, and it doesn't even have to be the same substance or the same thing, we all have similarities in personality, similarities in how we feel. What are those similarities, do you guys think?
I think for a long time we both wanted to run from things that were uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We especially feelings, but circumstances, situations. You develop this pattern, I guess, a habit of trying to mask things that you don't like.
Sure.
We both shared that for a very long time. We ended up doing it together for a very long time. And I think today, the reason we're so successful in what we're doing is we're very much aligned on intentionally moving into those things that we don't like.
Yeah.
Pay attention to the tension. I don't know if that's something Scott Mann says or somebody says that, but it's really true. Like when you're in a circumstance or situation, you feel that tension that, 10 years ago, I would have gone and drank at to get rid of it. I don't want to feel that. Let's get rid of it. Now I intentionally move into those situations because I know there's an opportunity for growth there. So on both sides of our addiction alcoholism journey, we've shared the way we approach traumatic events, uncomfortable situations that scare the hell out of us. 6, 7, 8 years ago, we would mask anything uncomfortable with the substance. My go-to is always alcohol. Every single bad decision I have ever made in my life, the common denominator was always alcohol.
Yeah.
And then today, on this side of our recovery journey, we've learned that by moving into those circumstances we used to run from, you grow as a human being. You find, honestly, I think that's how you find your purpose on this earth.
100%. That's incredible. I mean, what are some of the similarities that you have seen between y'all two from your perspective?
Well, definitely one thing is we are all or nothing
Yeah,
type
yeah.
people, which most alcoholics and addicts, like, the real hardcore ones, that's how it is. It's
Right.
like all or nothing. And I've noticed that with us, if we're in our active addiction, if alcoholism, it is like go, go, go.
Mm-hmm.
And that can either really destroy your lives or make it better. Now, when it was in our active addiction days and alcoholic days, it completely destroyed our lives. But now that we've gotten clean and we've got a few years clean under our belt, we've used that same mentality and that same, we call it crackhead energy.
Yeah.
Because we were on crack too. So we've taken our crackhead energy minus the crack and we're just full force again. But this
Yeah.
time, instead
good.
of destroying
good,
ourselves, we're doing good things.
Yep.
No, that's incredible. And yeah, it really resonates with me, the all or nothing mentality. Because like it literally does not matter what I'm doing. I will throw myself into it 110%. Like things as simple as drinking a water bottle. Like I'll open that thing and it's like, bam, now the water's all gone. I get a drink from a restaurant or whatever. It doesn't even, not even an alcoholic drink. Starbucks, it doesn't matter what it is. I am just like, everything I do, even the minute benign things, it's like everything. And so it's really cool because when you find that positive thing that you can throw yourself into completely, it's great. But we have to manage it, with the negative.
Yeah.
And even the small stuff. I mean, because it's really easy to fall back into bad habits, even with very small things. When did you feel like was your first realization? And I'm gonna ask you guys both this question. When do you feel like was your first realization, like, okay, this is an issue that I need to address?
God, that's...
And it's okay if it was a process, really, like whatever.
Yeah, it was. So there's a difference, I think, between realizing I need to address it and being willing to address it.
Oh,
like
100%.
You know, when you're 15 years old and you find yourself locked up against your will, or you find yourself court ordered into a Narcotics Anonymous meeting at 15, like that's a pretty big clue that you have a problem. And I think I probably knew that. Like I knew it then, but I didn't want to admit it, not to myself and certainly not to anybody else.
Yeah.
It took a long time I'd have these years of sobriety, periods of sobriety, and then relapse.
Really?
Because I wanted so badly to be able to drink like a normal human being.
Yeah.
And I never could. And I don't know if that's... I don't know when that switch flipped from I'm using this to escape something I don't like to I'm doing this because I literally don't have a choice in the matter anymore. You know, addiction, alcoholism always begins with a choice. I'm not going to like try to gloss over that and be like, well, it's just a disease. No, it started with a choice, but at some point in that journey, you lose the power of choice, and it's usually very early in the journey. It was for me. Yeah, you lose control.
It's earlier than most people realize, I think.
Yes.
The people going through it, at least. Like, outwardly, people can look at you and be like, this isn't looking good. But you're just like, whatever, you know?
Yep. But to have gotten to the point where I was willing to actually do something about it, dude, the amount of suffering I was willing to endure before I hit that is staggering. I mean, I've lost my first marriage, my freedom, I don't even know how many times, cars, businesses, houses,
really,
like almost my life a handful of times. And any logical person from the outside looking in is seeing, you know, my story. Like, here's a guy that, you know, college degree, very, very, you know, capable and smart, and he's destroying his life. Like any of these small moments where I lost something, any rational person is going to look at that and be like, oh, cool, he's going to find rock bottom now. Nope. Nope. Not even close, man.
Digging.
Not even close. Yeah, I've heard the phrase rock bottom has a basement, and it sure as hell does, man. Like I fell further than I ever thought I could have possibly fallen. Like lost everybody and everything close to me, and it still was not enough. Yeah. You know, so I finally hit rock bottom in 2019 outside of a trap house in South Memphis.
No kidding.
I had gone from, you know, being a business owner with like, I don't know how many employees at a time, but over the course of that business, I had like 30 employees, 15,000 square foot warehouse, you know, muscle cars, trucks, all the toys in the world, $150,000 gun collection. I'd worked for a Fortune 500. I'd done medical. Like, I had it made, you know, and I'm waking up in an empty lot in South Memphis where I am literally the only white person within miles. And I have nothing. I have nothing. All I had to my name at that point in time was a $700 truck, and I didn't even know where it was. I'm covered in blood, and I have no idea whose blood it is because I don't have a cut on my body. But that was when I was finally willing to do something about it. I woke up and I was like, you know what? I'm not living this way anymore.
Right. What about you, Miss Jessica? So at what point did you feel like, okay, this is something now that is a major problem that I need to address?
I think that it happened a few times because there was a lot of relapses. I think the very first time though was when my firstborn, my oldest, turned 10 years old, which is a big milestone, you know, and you want to celebrate that. And I was too dope sick to get out of bed. Yeah. I couldn't move. Like my hair hurt, my skin hurt, like everything hurt. It hurt to breathe. Yeah. Like I just didn't want to live anymore. And I even tried to drink alcohol. I was like, maybe this will help. And it just only made it worse. And that was the first time that I finally surrendered. And I was like, you know what? I think I do probably need some help. And that was my first time going into rehab. And that obviously, it took for about a year. I was clean for about a year. I met Ben within that time frame. I think it was probably about 8 months clean.
4 months clean.
Okay, maybe 4 months clean. I met Ben. then we ended up going back out together and burning the whole world down with us. But there were a few times. But in 2019, which is what Ben just described, I had actually lost Ben for like 3 or 4 days in South Memphis, where he woke up covered in blood. And we had gotten in a huge fight, and, you know, we were all hanging out with prostitutes and gang members and drug dealers. And, you know, it wasn't a great place. And we actually had our 2-year-old for some of that living in the truck with us. So when I lost Ben, I couldn't find him, and it was just me and my son. And, you know, those aren't very good streets. I know everybody on those streets, so it was a little safer for us, but it was still a bad place to be.
Yeah.
And I think after losing him and really realizing that he could actually be dead in a ditch somewhere, once we did find each other again, we were like, you know what? It's time. It's time to go somewhere.
So you guys came to that realization together, it sounds like. I mean, or
Just a few days
not
apart.
literally physically together, but I mean, you guys were like right around the same time. You guys were both like, all right,
Yeah.
it's time. Enough is enough.
Yep.
Ben had to leave me first.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I left her. I left her at the truck, and I got on a Greyhound bus to my parents' house in Georgia.
Really?
You know, 37 years old. Had all the accolades I described in my background, and I'm 37 years old with 7 kids at the time.
Yeah.
Moving into my parents' basement, dude, with absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Starting all the way over.
Yeah. So, I mean, why did you make that decision to leave?
I was tired of living that way, and you know, I finally hit a point of sufficient suffering to be willing to do something about it.
Sure.
And I've heard the expression, you know, we won't change until the pain of remaining the same becomes greater than the pain of change. And that's what finally happened.
Yeah.
I finally had just had enough, and I was willing to do something about it. The solution had been in front of me the whole time. You know, like I mentioned, I was in my first AA and NA meetings when I was 15 years old. Like, I knew what I needed to do. I just wasn't willing to do it. I thought I was special and I was going to get better in a different way. And that I was one of those people who is capable of drinking responsibly. And I'm definitely not. There are people like that out there. I'm just not one of them.
Sure.
You know, and to anybody watching this, you know, I'm not saying the only way to beat an alcohol problem is total abstinence. That's the only way for me.
For sure.
You know, but there are people out there who can beat this plenty of other ways. I think that the takeaway is if you realize you have a problem with alcohol, you should probably try to stop completely. Try total abstinence, and that'll clue you in, do I really have a problem or not? Because if you struggle doing that, chances are pretty high you got a problem.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and so Jessica, you've talked about, you know, you relapsed a couple times. Is the fear of relapse still present for you?
I think that's always going to be a fear. I woke up this morning. I had a using dream last night. So
Really?
even when you're clean, like you'll have dreams of using, and you'll wake up thinking that you're high, and it's a very odd feeling. But I think I don't really fear it now because I have so much purpose, and I'm a lot better mentally.
Sure.
Than, you know, after about 6 years, you're a little more clear headed than when you first start. When you first get clean. When you first get clean, it's terrifying. Like every corner, you're like, okay. And I'm not really afraid anymore. But there is one thing though, and I hear people say this, and they're like, I beat addiction and I beat alcoholism,
Yeah.
and I think that's a very dangerous thing to say.
Yeah, a bit arrogant, maybe.
Yeah, because if you're, and you know, there's different levels of alcoholics and addicts, but on the level me and Ben are on, which are pretty fucking hardcore, you don't ever beat it.
Yeah.
It is in you until you die. And the moment you forget that is when you can go mess up.
Yeah.
So you always have to keep that at the front of your mind that, you know what, if I do pick up that drink or that pipe, I'm off to the races, and
Sure.
I'm going to be homeless again in like 3 weeks
Right.
or less. So I think it's very important to always keep that in the front of your
Have a
mind.
healthy respect for it.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and so, you know, over the course of y'all's journey with, you know, this seriously problematic behavior, like, were there times when you were high functioning societally, like in your businesses and what you were doing? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I dabbled in dope when I was a teenager. I was never addicted to it. It was really just alcohol until 2011 or 12.
Yep.
And actually from 2007 until 2011 or 12, I was sober. I'd gotten in a near fatal car wreck in 2007 on Easter Sunday and put everything down. I was like, I'm done. I'm going to stay. But I wasn't willing to go to meetings because I still thought I was special. And, God, my ADHD just grabbed me. What was your question?
When was your, did you have periods of time when you were, in your,
So this is one of the ways I used to rationalize it to myself. Because I was able to get sober out of spite or get sober to get somebody off my back about it, I told myself, see, I've got full control over this,
Sure.
And even after, because I destroyed my first marriage with the heroin addiction, which began in 2013. By 2014, I'd been arrested for the first time, and my ex-wife, now the mother of 5 of my kids, filed for divorce. That was over with. Then I met Jess in 2015, and we, rebuilt businesses.
Yeah.
We were doing, I think, was it February of 2018? We did $500,000 in revenue on the tactical e-commerce sites. But we were cranking it out. But here's the thing: we had $1,000 a day habit.
Yeah.
I don't care how much money you're bringing in. If you have a habit that is that steep, eventually you're going to start neglecting the things that are paying for that
100%.
habit.
Yeah.
And so, outside looking in, I think people were stunned when we lost everything in 2019 and ended up moving into a trap house. Because we went from having this huge house and, making tons of money, but behind the scenes, we're blowing it all on dope. We're not spending on what we need to be spending on. So there were plenty of periods where outside looking in, we had it together.
Yeah.
We were living a double life for a lot of that. And then, before I met Jess, I would be able to get a year sober, 2 years sober. And then, like I said, from 2007 to 2011, I was sober that whole time.
Yeah.
And I think it just set the stage for an even more meteoric collapse because everybody thought Ben had it together. And so I had no network. I had nobody I could lean on because I was doing all of this in secret. I didn't have using buddies back then.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to bars. It was just kind of a glass of scotch at home every night. But in reality, I had dozens of bottles of scotch, and my ex-wife never had any idea how much I was actually drinking. I had a $120 a day scotch habit before heroin started.
Really?
Yeah, I was drinking 2 bottles of Macallan 12 every day.
Wow. Yeah, and it's incredible. One of the things that I used to do to justify it is I would say I've never gotten a DUI. I've never crashed my car. I've never fought anybody. And so I don't have an issue, right? I don't have this catastrophic story. So I'm fine. I can drink. And it just, I don't know. It's funny, the different things that have to happen to kind of make you realize and for some people it just looks different.
It's different for everybody. And oddly enough, I've never gotten a DUI. Go figure that one out. Allegedly, I hold the Tennessee state record for ambulatory blood alcohol content. I walked into Baptist East in Memphis, throwing up blood.
Oh no!
With a .46, denying that I'd had anything to drink.
These aren't even my pants.
Right? Yeah.
Oh man. And so, okay, so I'm going to pose the same question to you, Jessica. Was there periods of time when you were, exhibiting this problematic behavior, but you were still functional? You were still getting what you needed to get done?
That was my specialty, actually, because I think from growing up with my mom and always seeing her sloppy drunk and passed out, and I wanted to be the opposite. So I would take opiates, and it was like speed, and I was like super mom. We'd go feed the ducks, and we would make brownies, and we would clean the house, and I would organize stuff. And then we had our businesses, and, I was on shipments, and I was on customer care, and I was boom, boom, boom. I could do whatever you needed me to, and I could do it efficiently. And I looked amazing doing it. But then I would get dope sick because I ran out of opiates or heroin, and then I couldn't move, and then I couldn't do the shipments, and I couldn't do shit for my kids. And so it's this up and down, and it really messed the kids up too, because they're used to, they would be used to a mom for a few days that could be like, oh, let's go do this, and let's go do that, let's go shopping. And then And then they'd come in and see me, and I can barely even get up to go pee in the morning. So when it was good, it was good. I looked good, and, you know, we had this big house and a gated community, and like we looked really good on paper. And everybody just thought we had this amazing life. But behind closed doors, like we were suffering pretty bad with dope sickness, with Ben's alcoholism. You know, sometimes he would have a relapse and he would like break all the doors in the house. You know, nobody saw that. We made sure that nobody saw that.
Sure.
We had to keep that facade.
Yeah.
But yes, there's plenty of times where it was just off and on.
Yeah, and it's incredible, you know, after you get a handle on this stuff, it's incredible how free from shame you feel. And then the fear of, because, you know, you guys were literally trying to conceal this from people, and now you are on a podcast talking about it openly, and we're hoping this gets as many views as possible. You know what I mean? So it's funny how everything flips. And it's really, really powerful. So was there any level, you know, Ben talks about basically justifying his behavior. Was there some level of justification because you were like, yeah, I'm a better mom when I'm on this stuff. I'm a better business partner. I'm a better employee. Like, was that present for you?
Absolutely.
I've heard those exact words.
And all of those things, yes. Because, I mean, you heard how I grew up. You know, it was a horrible childhood.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to give
you were
my
giving
kids...
way more than you got.
Yeah. And that's how I justified it. And I was like, and when me and Ben run a business, again, it's the all or nothing thing. We don't half-ass thing.
Yeah.
There's no mediocrity. We're like, go, go, go. We're going to be the best. We're going to do the most shipments and have the most customers. And that's how it always is. And Ben actually grows his businesses beyond what we can handle, like every single time, because he's good at what he does.
Yeah.
So we would have this customer base.
There's worse problems to have.
Right.
But it's, you know, it's very hard to keep up with because he will grow it like wildfire. And then I'm the one that has to keep up with the customers and the shipments. And that was another justification. I was like, well, it's really helping us keep the money coming in. And we've got these kids we have to support. And the kids are happy because I'm taking them, you know, and doing all the things. But there was a lot of justification that really shouldn't have been justification at all, because on the days that I couldn't move, that should have said something right there.
Right.
And I would just look past that until I couldn't anymore.
Sure. Yeah. So you guys came to the realization that you needed to get a handle on this stuff effectively at the same time, but physically separate. What did the start of that journey look like for you?
The start of that journey for me was getting on a Greyhound bus and swallowing my pride and going to move in with my parents. You know, for all intents and purposes, I moved out of my parents' house when I got locked up at 15. I lived on my own my senior year in high school. You know, obviously I lived on my own when I was in college. So being willing to actually submit to like my parents' authority at 37 years old,
especially after achieving everything you had achieved.
Exactly. You know, and like my kids would roast me for it. I remember, yeah, like dude, my kids are ruthless.
Kids are always furious. We were just going through the, I can't even remember what store we were going through, but I picked up a couple groceries, and one of my daughters was like, why are you getting groceries? And I was like, so I can cook you guys dinner. And she was like, you always Uber Eats everything to the house. And I was like, no, I don't. And they all three, three of my four, I had all four of them. They were like, yeah, you do, Dad. You Uber Eats everything.
Yeah.
Like ran the cashiers laughing. But okay, so it was.
that was the, and I remember my first Thanksgiving clean. We always maintained a great relationship with our kids, even when we were up. Like, it was only really bad for the last few months, but like prior to that, I mean, I was T-ball coach, I was scout leader.
Yeah.
So my kids still love me, right? Our first Thanksgiving clean, I think Jacob was 13 at the time. I was giving him life advice about something. I forget what it was. He's like, aren't you 37 and you live with your parents? I was like, all right, that's fair. You know.
Yeah. What was your actual response to him when he said that?
That's exactly. I was like, yeah, I actually think I high-fived him because it was such a solid burn. I don't remember the exact content. Yeah. It was hilarious, so I can tell you that. So to answer your question, swallow my pride and doing that was step one. Step two, like I had planned this out. The reason we moved to my parents was not just because there was somewhere for me to go. It was because there was an 18-month residential men's program there for guys trying to.
Okay.
And so my plan was, I'm coming here. I accept that I'm not special, but I'm still going to try this my way first.
Sure.
And if it doesn't work, here's my backup plan. I'm going to this 18-month program.
Yeah.
5 days, maybe 4 days after I got to my parents, she's texting me. She's like, "Get me the fuck out of Memphis. I want to get clean too." You know, so 7 days off the streets. I got back on a Greyhound bus because even though I left her the $700 truck, I forgot and took keys with me. So I get back on a Greyhound bus. I go back to Memphis. I get her and James, and we leave to Georgia. So her clean date is June 1st of 2019. Mine was May 26th of 2019. I got a job. That was another big deal for me because I haven't worked for anybody in a very long time. I've been self-employed. So I got a job at this data company in Georgia, and they had cold beer 30 on Fridays. And obviously I drank and thought I was going to, you know,
you thought you were gonna do it.
Yeah. It ended exactly like you would expect it would. Like I got out of control instantaneously. So now my sober day is October 4th of 2019. And the way that happened was, since her and James had come, she did not want me to just leave her at my parents' house and go check into residential treatment for 18 months. Like, that's terrible.
Sure.
So I was like, all right, fine. Well, I'm gonna actually try Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'll be damned if exactly what these people have been telling me to do for 20 years didn't work. Like, I felt so like the solution's been in front of me since I was 15. I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to get a sponsor. I don't want to tell another man all the jacked up stuff I've done. I don't want to talk about my feelings.
Yeah.
I don't want to work steps. I don't want to, I don't want to do any of this. But I had finally got to the point where I didn't want to drink even more than I didn't want to do that. So I was like, I'm going to give it a shot. Yeah. And it worked. It worked. Yeah. And I felt really dumb about that. So look, to anybody watching this, if you have a problem with alcohol and you're wondering if AA is going to work, don't look for excuses for it not to work. Just go do the work, dude. It works. It's that simple. Like, it actually works. Now, I'm not saying the only way to get sober is to do 12-step recovery.
But it worked for you.
It's what worked for me.
Yeah.
And I was resistant to it for 23 years, I guess. I was 38 when I went into AA, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Or almost, I was still 37. I was almost 38.
You were close.
So we went in October of 2019. Anyway. So I got a sponsor.
Yeah.
Like, I started working the steps. And it was incredibly uncomfortable. I didn't want to do any of that, but I had to because I did not want to I started enjoying my life. I was actually able to look in the mirror and not cuss at the man I saw in the reflection and tell him what a piece of he was.
What did it feel like the first time you looked in the mirror and you didn't hate what you saw?
Dude, it was the most freeing thing. I'll never forget it. It was in my parents' house. I had my son Jackson there, and I was teaching him to shave for the first time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
what a
and
cool moment.
That was the first time I looked at myself in the mirror and did not hate the man staring back.
It's going to make me emotional. That's incredible.
I've got pictures of it. Like, I will never forget that moment.
That's amazing.
I spent years looking in a mirror, telling myself what a piece of shit I was.
Yeah.
Because I believed that. I felt it in the core of my being. You know, I had kids that deserved to have the dad they grew up with, which was T-ball coach, scoutmaster, business owner, just all around fun guy, restoring muscle cars. And I'd taken that from him, you know, and my two oldest boys, they forgave me. When Jess and I left and went to Georgia, those aren't her biological children, but they came with us. You know, they wanted to maintain that relationship that we had at one point in time. And I'm happy to say today we've got it back. And I would not have that if it was not for Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, cocaine. And you pick your A, I qualify for the meeting. You know what I mean? But being willing to do the hard things, being willing to confront feelings I don't like, being willing to put myself intentionally in uncomfortable situations, that's what early recovery looked like for me. And once I learned the value and started buying into this concept of personal growth, which I used to make fun of, like, things changed for me very quickly. You know, we were able to rebuild our businesses. We were able to start new businesses. We even started nonprofits. Like, I think the big turning point for me was when my best friend overdosed and died in December of 2019. And he had nobody left. We left him on the streets of South Memphis, and I'll never not carry guilt about that. I can't take my best friend to my parents' house and move, you know, and he had nobody. My ex-wife, I've still got a great relationship with her. She would take him food sometimes, take him cigarettes. But Jess and I were the ones that like took care of him and knew when he was getting too shot off and tried to get him help. So anyway, he died in December 2019. He had nobody left, and there was nobody to even bury him or cremate him or anything.
Yeah.
So even though we still lived in my parents' house and we were still in the process of trying to get our businesses back off the ground, Jess and I used my social media presence, which was big back then. I mean, I got kicked off not too long after that. Had to start over from scratch. But anyway, we used our social media to do a GoFundMe to raise money to cremate him. And we ended up raising a lot more than it cost to cremate him. And we gave every single penny of that overage to the drug court program in Memphis, which he was a graduate of. I was terminated from. I was kicked off. Kind of weird. He graduated like with honors, and he's in a bag in my glove box now.
Yeah.
And I was terminated, and I'm sitting here at this table with you.
Right.
But anyway, we gave the money to drug court, and something clicked in our heads. Like, dude, I enjoy doing this. I enjoy raising money and giving it away, trying to help other people that are still struggling with the same that I, used to struggle with. And that realization, it didn't happen immediately, but over time, over the next couple of years, we started leaning more into that. And if you're familiar with 12-step recovery at all, the 12th step is to go be of service to the people still struggling,
right?
And so that's really become kind of our life's work. It's where we spend all of our time. It keeps us sober. And I'll tell you one thing, you were asking about the fear of relapse. I won't say I'm afraid of relapse because every day when I wake up, I know I don't have to drink today. And that's a huge thing for me. But doing this work that we're doing, it kind of keeps it green. It keeps that memory fresh.
Right.
And so I'll never forget what it was like to wake up and know if I don't get a drink within the next 15 minutes, I'm going to have a seizure and I might have another heart attack and I might not make it through this one.
Yeah.
And that's
terrifying.
It's a really long answer to your question.
No, it's a great answer. And you did bring something up. It's funny. You talked about maybe there was, you were reticent to do anything that was like self-growth, self-development, self-help, whatever it is. And isn't it funny that like when we're going through this kind of stuff, we'll see somebody trying to better themselves and we're like, oh, nerd.
100%.
Like,
that was me.
And it's ridiculous because it's exactly what we need.
Yeah.
So, Jessica, there was a period of time Ben was heading somewhere else. You were still in South Memphis. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, during this period of time, you realized also that you needed to get clean. What made you come to that realization? Walk me through that time when you were alone up until you sent that text message.
So in South Memphis, and of course I had my 2-year-old, which is never a good thing. And we always had my dad's house to go back to if I needed to. Because, obviously if we're smoking crack and drinking and stuff in the trap houses, I don't want to take my 2-year-old in there. So sometimes I would take him to my dad's house and just drop him off for a little while. The only thing is I had a mattress on the floor in the living room because when me and Ben got, evicted from our big, beautiful house, we called my dad and we were like, hey, we're getting kicked out. And so he was like, well, you can come stay here if you want. But, he didn't want to, get us a nice room and, do all that. He was like, here, you can have a mattress on the floor. That was pretty much it.
Sure.
And the mattress that was on the floor in the living room was literally 3 feet away from where my mom had overdosed, like 15, 20 years prior.
Yeah.
So it's never a good place to be anyway.
Right.
And that's the same house that, I used to get beat in, and, a whole lot of bad memories were in that house. So when he did finally leave South Memphis and he was like, deuces, I'm gone. I just kind of stuck there, and Ben was the businessman. He was the one who made the money. He was the visionary and I executed.
You kind of facilitated.
Yeah. So without Ben, there was really nobody to make the money. So there was no way to get my drugs. There was no way to get the alcohol. There was no way to do anything really, because it was just me and my 2-year-old. So I went back to my dad's house and I just sat there for a few days. And I just, again, it's the same house that I lived in with my mom. So there's doors broken, the cabinets are falling off. There's no silverware, which, to most people, that's not a huge deal. But one day Ben sent me a picture of his mom's house and it's a drawer full of silverware, and they all match, and they're all clean.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, fuck, I want clean silverware. I want matching silverware.
Yeah.
And that sounds so stupid, to most people, but I grew up with nothing, and I
Yeah.
grew up with a broken house and a broken family, and I'm just sitting there on this mattress 3 feet away from where my mom overdosed, and I'm just looking around. I'm like, I don't want to fucking be here anymore.
Yeah.
So I texted Ben. I was like, you know what? I think I'm ready to come get me.
That's so interesting. But like, I mean, yeah, I mean, it sounds kind of, it's a small thing, right? But I'm sure you're glad you got that picture
Yeah.
and you had those feelings because it started you on your journey to where you are now, doing really incredible things. And I do want to say, I hope you guys are proud of yourselves because you have a lot to be proud of. I've been in therapy for, basically my entire adult life. And, when I had my first kid, I had a therapist say something that was really profound that stuck with me. They said, tell your kids that you're proud of them for sure, but make sure you also encourage them to feel proud of themselves because that intrinsic pride can really carry you, and I think a lot of us struggle with like low self-worth. To this day, I struggle with it. And so, developing that skill set, which sounds funny, right? Developing the skill of being able to feel proud of yourself as a kid, I think it's really important. And it can keep people away from this type of stuff. Low self-worth, I think, is what drives a lot of us towards this stuff. So I'm going to ask you this question, Jessica, first, and then I'm going to go to you, Ben. I think there's obviously tons of, and I'm happy to say, I think there's less stigma today than there was, even 5 years ago, especially 10 plus years ago. There's less stigma today associated with getting help, but there's still stigma. There's stereotypes, or when people hear certain terms, they immediately go to certain things. What do you think, what do you think if I were to say that there's maybe a stigma that somebody that needs to get help, somebody that ended up in the situation that you guys found yourselves in, maybe people think that they're less than, they think they're not intelligent, not high performers. Like, what do you think about that?
And that is definitely a huge problem, not only with the addict or the alcoholic themselves thinking that some of them think they're not worth getting any help.
Yeah.
But then also the people that are looking down on them, that also makes it a lot worse. And there is a huge stigma with that because people that have never been through it or people that have never experienced it in their own family, they're just like, oh, that's just a junkie. You just let him go.
Yeah.
But it's not always just a junkie. Sometimes it is a father. I mean, hell, you have so many people coming out now, like in government, in high-ranking positions and stuff that, they're like, well, you know what? I was an alcoholic. I was an addict. And
We've had presidents that struggle with it.
Yes, exactly. And it's not a low-income disease.
Yeah.
It's a very much a genetic type disease. It's not just, oh, they're poor and they're living in the hood and that's why they're addicts. But there is a stigma, and I think the stigmatization that is going on right now, of course, it's a lot better now. But back then, especially even when we got clean, that there was a lot of stigma, and it's harder for people to reach out for help because they don't want to be categorized.
Yeah.
They don't want to be looked down upon, and actually, I mean, if you really think about it, especially with, I will say drug addicts because that's what I'm more familiar with because that's what I was. I was more drug addict than an alcoholic. But dude, the amount of give a fuck that you have to go get high every day, to get off your ass, sick or not, feel like you're dying and go find a way to make money so you can keep yourself well. Like that is a level of energy and what's the word, Ben? Hustle. Yes. There's a determination and a hustle. Yeah. And like that normal people do not have. And if used for good, like you can really go for the moon with it. I mean, there's so much you can do with the level of determination that an addict or an alcoholic actually has.
You gotta channel it. You gotta channel that energy to something positive in a good direction.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, it is. Yeah, it is funny because you apply that same mindset, the mindset to go out and get the thing you want to use. You channel that into going out and doing a hard day's work. And it completely different result, obviously.
Yes. Like the stigmas are incorrect. They're not right. And the mainstream media, they'll make you think that you're a loser and you're sloppy and you're a nothing. But yes, the amount of determination it takes to endure that kind of life, first of all, and to go through what you have to go through, or what you put yourself through, because a lot of us do it to ourselves.
Sure.
That takes a lot. And you're not just some sloppy drunk. You're not just a stupid person. Like, a lot of us are actually very intelligent.
Yeah.
In order to figure out ways, a lot of different ways off the top of our head to keep going.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. All right, Ben, what do you think about that stigma that people may have associated with people struggling with this stuff?
We could do an entire podcast around this.
Right,
Honestly,
yeah.
I could talk about this for hours. You heard a little bit about our background, completely different. I was raised by an industrial engineer and an Army Ranger who later went on to become a pharmaceutical executive. Say I had a good childhood is a dramatic understatement, right?
Sure.
She had a horrendous one, yet we ended up in the same Narcotics Anonymous meeting in 2015. Addiction does not discriminate.
Yeah.
Alcoholism does not discriminate. It can hit anybody, high class, low class, medium class, other side of the world class. Like, it does not matter. Smart, dumb, it doesn't matter. Addiction can hit any of us and all of us. And we live in a society, I mean, let's be honest, it's all about immediate gratification.
Yeah.
What better way to get immediate gratification than to just consume a substance that instantaneously changes the way you feel?
Right.
Some of the most resilient people I have ever met come off the streets. And some of the most intelligent too. We've got a guy in Memphis. I've actually interviewed him, an ex-pimp, an ex-crack addict. Dude's IQ's over 160.
Wow.
He got a law degree while incarcerated and got himself out of prison. I mean, the guy's brilliant. Yeah, but he's toothless. Well, he was toothless. We got him dentures. But he was. You look at him.
Was that his nickname for a while? Toothless?
Fila, like the shoes. Maybe actually, so somebody messaged me day before yesterday on Facebook, said he encountered a toothless man at our nursing home. I was like, it's probably Fila. He's like, yeah, I just looked him up on YouTube. That's him. Anyway,
so
one of the smartest dudes I've ever known in my life. And I'm no dummy. Like I mentioned, I got locked up at 15. While I was locked up, a medical trial that I had led was published in the journal Neurology.
No
Like, I had high promise, man. Now, to be clear, I've killed a whole lot of brain cells, like I have dumbed myself down exponentially, but
I mean, that's probably so the world can handle you. You know what I mean?
or so I can handle the world. I mean, it's like
Too much awareness.
yes, exactly. Too much awareness is a bad thing. But everybody's seen that meme that says if a crackhead wakes up today and says, I don't have any money, I'm not going to get high, that doesn't happen. Don't let a crackhead out hustle you, something to that effect. The average American will never understand the truth in that meme.
Yeah.
Now, I mentioned I got arrested like 18 times. The only crime I ever committed was having my own drugs and my own guns in the same place, which is a no-no. Like, I didn't go out and rob people. I didn't steal from people. I had to come up with a new hustle literally every day to maintain that habit we had. Even when we were homeless, we still had a staggeringly expensive habit, which makes it even worse that we were homeless. Like, how irresponsible is that? But it's neither here nor there. I guess the stigma around addiction is getting better. It's changed a lot in the last, since we got clean. When I first got clean, I was terrified my background was going to come out and everybody would judge me. And then we got involved in the evacuation out of Afghanistan, and I'm now working with all sorts of spooky people who can snap their fingers and figure out my background. So I decided to get public with it, but I kind of did it by dipping my toe in. I was like, I'm an alcoholic. I would say that on LinkedIn. I would talk about my struggle with alcohol on LinkedIn, and the reaction I got was the opposite of what I thought. I make my living from the gun industry. I sell data to gun companies. And typically we think of the gun industry as, like ultra conservative, right wing. They're going to hate anybody that did drugs.
Yeah.
Or had a problem with alcohol.
Sure.
So I had to very carefully start talking about it on social media. And the response I got was the opposite of what I was expecting. A lot of people were doing the Me Too thing. I've thought that too. And then I was like, well, in addition to alcohol, I also did a lot of heroin. And I talked about that for a little bit. The one thing I never wanted to admit was crack. Like
How
I
is that?
even have a stigma about, because we all think of the crackheads as a dude out panhandling at the gas station.
Oh, okay.
You know, and while maybe that is true in a lot of cases, it's not always the case. But eventually I got like fully open about my background and my struggles. And I've been honestly shocked at the number of people in high positions who are coming out saying, you know, I can't say this publicly on LinkedIn, but I want you to know your message really resonated with me today. I'm talking C-suites that have been addicted to crack. Of course, I guess now we've had a president whose son was a crackhead, so it's cool now. But for the longest time, it was not. You know what I mean?
I did not expect today to find out there's beef between different drug users.
Oh yeah.
Crazy.
So, like, musicians and movie stars use cocaine and heroin.
Right, yeah. It's like classy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's upscale.
Crackheads use crack.
Crackheads use crack.
Right. But you know, I've said more than once, I'm still a crackhead. I just lost the dope and kept the energy, and that is really true. If you look at the level of hustle and resilience and the willingness to overcome and do hard things that a crackhead on the streets has to endure, if you can redirect that energy into something positive, dude, the sky's the limit. I mean, literally, the sky is the limit.
All right, let's talk a little bit about your journey with recovery. You know, you are moving back in with your parents. You get a text from Jessica a couple days later, and she says, hey, I want to get clean too. She's experienced some stuff up to that point, you know. Can you just, like, walk me through literally everything, the successes, the failures, the roadblocks, all of it?
Yeah. I got on a Greyhound bus and went back to Memphis to bring the keys and get the $700 truck and my wife and James and go back to Georgia and start life all the way over. I hate change. I've always hated change.
Yeah.
Most addicts hate change.
100%.
So, I mean, it was terrifying. It was also terrifying going back to Memphis because, you know, at that point in time, me and Jess catalyzed the worst in each other.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I've ever verbalized this. I was terrified coming back to get you because I thought we were going to do what we always did. And that was, this is hard. I don't want to deal with it. Let's go get high. That's not what we did. We didn't spend even one night in Memphis when I came back. I got in that truck. We cranked up and we hit Highway 78 going out of Memphis. And I'd actually planned this, the whole Greyhound drive over there. It takes 12 hours on a Greyhound to make a 6-hour trip. It really sucks. So I had a lot of time to think, and I was like, I'm going to make this really dramatic post about us leaving Memphis, and I'm going to take a picture in the rear view and say we're leaving the city in the rear view for good, and I'm going to post it to Facebook, and it's going to be the giant middle finger to all the people that never thought I'd do anything with my life, and I did that, and it was really lame. Like, I thought it was going to be so dramatic. Anyway, we left Memphis, went to Georgia. I got this BS job at a data company just trying to figure out, because I still had all of this experience doing e-commerce. I'd run several successful businesses and then ran them into the ground, with, you know, because you can't do drugs and run a business at the same time. But I still had the knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And I'd also retained a lot of IP, intellectual property, from these companies. And I was trying to figure out how to repurpose all of the data I had from the gun industry into our next business. I had no intentions of staying employed by somebody else because I hate it. I hate having a job. I need to create jobs. So I was making like $2,000 a month. I was bringing this dude, you know, gobs of sales in, and the whole time I'm watching how he's running the data architecture on the back end of this business because I want to replicate it in the firearms industry.
True.
And Jess had never seen me working for anybody else. I'd been self-employed the whole time we knew each
really?
other. So she sees this guy treating me like a little peon, and her and my mom both are telling me, like, you need to quit this job. He's taking advantage of it. And I'm like, no. There's a plan here.
Yeah.
I've got a plan. And it took about 6 months. We had some ups and downs. I mean, I relapsed a few times. You want to talk about a resentment? I got a girl that left everything she'd ever known to come get clean with me, and I'm going and getting drunk, and she can't. She doesn't get to get high.
Right.
So our relationship had some pretty heavy ups and downs during that time. Brandon dying in December was a major hit to both of us. Most people don't know this, but if you think about it, it's logical. When you have depended on alcohol or drugs for long enough in your life, the prospect of getting clean is terrifying.
Yeah.
And so you create circumstances in your brain under which you will allow yourself to relapse.
Mm-hmm.
And my best friend dying was that for Jess and I. You know, Brandon is the reason we ever got together in the first place. Like he was a very important person to both of us. It wasn't just my best friend. So we'd already decided that when Brandon died, because we knew it was going to happen, he wasn't going to get clean. He had, type 1 diabetes. He was going blind. He had nobody left in his life. 3 of his dads had overdosed and died. His mom committed suicide. Me and him found her decomposing body like 18 months. Like we knew Brandon wasn't going to stay. So we decided when that happened, we were going to relapse. Her mom also overdosed and died 9 days before Christmas. And so in December's already, the stage is set for disaster.
Yeah.
When I made the call to MPD to go do a wellness check on Brandon, I already knew what they were going to find. And one of my employees beat them there. And sure enough, he was dead. And instead of doing what we had planned on doing, which was relapsing, we decided to just double down on the recovery.
Really?
I'd already gotten
Why?
I don't know. Like something broke in our heads. The addict part of us that should have, by all logical accounts, come out right then and there, did not. And I'll tell you why. I had found something in recovery that I'd been missing my whole life.
Yeah.
I've had this void inside of me since I was a little kid that I've tried to fill with anything and everything. Sports, academics, alcohol, dope. Recovery filled that void in me. And it was because of that 12th step, being of service to other people, that I've found, and I couldn't verbalize this back then, but in hindsight, I can see what happened. Like the guys that started AA are really brilliant if you think about it. I don't think anybody realizes that the public at large would benefit from working the 12 steps of AA.
Sure.
Like it just teaches you how to be a decent human being again.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know it, when you start being a decent human being, you like yourself.
Yeah.
You enjoy
like who you
life.
see in the mirror.
You like who you see in the mirror. And I didn't want to give that up. I didn't want to give up being able to tolerate the man looking back at me in the mirror.
Yeah.
And I knew one drink was all it would take for that to happen.
All right, Jessica. So Ben alluded to some resentment that you had, while he was doing his thing, kind of in recovery, kind of at almost like 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit to that? How you felt during that time?
It sucked.
Yeah.
It sucked a lot because with my mom and my experience with her, I had seen someone in and out of addiction, and in and out of alcoholism, tipping your toe into recovery and then, coming back out. So I didn't have any good experience with that. And I didn't want to live a life where I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if we were going to make it forward. I didn't know if we were going to make it out of Ben's parents' house. So when that started happening, I was like, well, what the f- am I doing? What am I doing? What am I going to do with my kids? And I was expecting the worst, which I still do today. I guess just growing up like that, I was just expecting the worst. Mm-hmm. And I remember one particular night, when you first get clean, you will have these cravings.
Yeah.
And sometimes it literally takes over you. Like you will do anything to go satisfy this craving. Well, on this particular night, I had fallen asleep and I woke up. I had just had a dream where I had been smoking crack, and I could just taste it, and I wanted it so bad.
Yeah.
I just can't even describe it. And Ben was not home, and it was kind of late, so I call him like, where are you? And he had apparently gotten a little drunk and went down to the bus stop, because that's where they were selling crack, and he had smoked some crack, and he actually came out with it, and he admitted it to me, and I'm sitting here fiending for it, and he's literally out there doing it. So I wanted to leave. I wanted to kill him. I wanted to just end it right there. I didn't want anything to do with Ben, really, because he had crack and I didn't get to, and I was very jealous of that. So, but once I got, past that, and I just sat him down, I was like, look, I literally left everything that I know so I can be with you.
Yeah.
In your parents' house, which is totally awkward, dude, because I'm an introverted kind of person.
Yeah.
So it was very awkward to be in his parents' house First off, it would have been awkward to be in my own parents' house,
Sure.
but much less, and then his, and then he's out doing this. And I didn't want his parents to think that we were, about to go back out. I didn't want them to kick us out because we had our kid.
Yeah.
But he reined it in, and he was like, you know what, you're right. We're not going to go back down that road. And he was like, I just can't quit this job yet. And that was another resentment, because I know Ben, and I know he grows businesses, and he is he is so gung-ho for,
Yeah.
he's such a
So maybe
good.
you thought he could be accomplishing way more.
Yes, I knew he could be. And
Yeah.
I'm just seeing this guy treat him like a peon. So I want to kill Ben for allowing it to happen, and I want to kill this for doing it. And so I was very angry at this point.
Yeah.
But then Brandon dies, and everything just kind of goes to the wayside.
Sure.
And I don't really care about his job anymore, and I don't really care that he relapsed anymore. And Brandon, I know I didn't say this earlier, when we were homeless, Brandon was also homeless. He was like our little brother. And like when Ben went missing, Brandon stayed in the car with us. Like he lived in my truck with me and James, our 3-year-old at that point. So I was very close with Brandon, as was Ben. So when Brandon died, it really it took a lot out of us.
Yeah.
And my mom overdosed in December. Brandon overdosed in December's just a
Yeah.
month altogether. So we just knew that we were going to relapse. We had it set in our heads. That was our reservation.
Did you guys discuss it?
No, I don't.
But both of you kind of knew.
I think
Oh,
we
both
just
knew.
knew, and we knew each other well enough
Yeah.
to know that when this happens, that's it. We're
Yeah.
gonna go.
There wasn't any set plan, but like you knew it was going to be devastating enough. That would
Yeah,
be. The
it was
tipping point.
understood.
Yeah.
It was understood. I don't think we really wanted to say that to each other.
Yeah.
Like, I think if I said that to Ben, I would come off as like, I'm about to go get high. And I think we were trying to keep focus on recovery.
Yep.
But as recovering addicts, we knew. But somehow when that happened, it's just like a switch flipped in our heads. And we just, we looked at where we were, and his mom had a very nice house, nice big TV and a room and, all this stuff that we hadn't had before, being on the streets for that long. And I wanted something different for my kids.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to give them a life that I didn't have. And I knew, and Ben knew, if we did go back out there and if we did make good on our little understood reservation that we're going to go get high, we would never have any of that. And the only bridge that we still had was his parents. And we didn't want to burn that. So, and I'm sure that had something to do with it too. Like if we burned that bridge with his parents, that was it. We were back on the streets, and we were in a whole different state at this point. I
Right.
knew no one, and he hadn't been there in years. He didn't know anyone either. So we would have been completely screwed. But again, a switch flipped. We knew we had to do something different
Yeah.
because we'd been doing the same for years and years. Like I've been getting high since I was 12 or 13, 12 or 13. I've lost a lot of brain cells, but
You guys keep saying that. You're both very clearly incredibly intelligent. I mean, super high achieving. It's amazing. It truly is amazing. And so it's funny because earlier, Ben, in the interview, you said the suffering has to get bad enough to where you're not going to go back. And so it sounds like that happened. In addition, you saw a quality of life that you wanted,
Yes.
Primarily it sounds like for your kids. I'm sure you guys wanted to have the big TV, nice house, stuff like that too. But like, really, you wanted stability for your children, and it's
Stability.
Yeah.
That's the magic word right
sure,
there.
yeah. Because I think as parents, most of us, more than material things, we want the best environment for our kids. And you guys know, like I tell people all the time, I'm like, kids are just as excited to go to a public pool as they are to go to Disneyland.
100%, dude.
You know,
they really are.
it does not take a lot to make your children happy. And one of my favorite things about being a father is when I show up at the house, the kids, like, they don't ask me what I did that day. They are just happy to see me because I'm Austin, because I'm dad, And
Sure.
and it's amazing. And so it sounds like your kids were just this massive driving force for you.
Yeah, our desire to just be present for our kids, because when you're high, you're not present.
Yeah.
So much of the decisions we made along the way come back to that. I think it's just to be able to maintain presence for the kids.
Yeah. That's really, really beautiful. Now, you talked about, was it Flanders Fields?
Yeah. So Flanders Fields.
Yeah, where's the name Flanders come from, first of all? Because I immediately think of The Simpsons.
Everyone does.
Everybody does. So there's a poem written by Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae after after a particularly bloody battle in World War I. He's a Canadian, and it's called In Flanders Fields. And it's this beautiful poem about a field of poppies where everybody died and they buried them where they laid. And the poem's just like strong, dude. If you read this thing, it's so powerful. I wish I could recite it for you, but I can't. ADHD is bad. So this is funny. And I don't know that I've ever publicly told this story. So in 2017, we were running Two Testicles Tactical, which we're relaunching, by the way, along with the sister brand called Two Tatas Tactical. Anyway, it's 2017. We're cranking out, 100, 150 orders a day. Life's good.
I'll give you your first promo code after you tell me this story, okay?
And I saw an ad for a shirt from Ranger Up that had this poem on it, and it was these poppies turning into paratroopers.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have to have that. And so she ordered it, and I get high the next day or something, and we're waiting on this shirt to come in. I get this idea. It's like, one day I'm going to get off of drugs and I'm going to start a nonprofit to help other vets get off drugs. And we're going to call it Flanders Fields.
This is like classic drunk conversation.
100%. Yeah. And so I literally had this idea in the middle of a crack high while drunk, right? Well, come 2021, we had more than we needed, and I'm like, it is time. I put on my Flanders Fields Ranger Up shirt, and I go get on the computer and I get LegalZoom. We're going to start a nonprofit. I had no idea what I was doing. Look, when we started that nonprofit, I didn't know you were allowed to even get paid by a nonprofit. I thought we just and we still don't. To this day.
You didn't know you could draw. You can draw a salary.
Yeah, I didn't know any of that. We didn't know. We knew nothing. Sure. And but it was like we realized that we have more than we need, and if we don't start doing something good with our excess, and we don't really start leaning into our 12th step, we're going to lose it all anyway.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm losing it anyway, why not do something good with it?
Yeah.
And so that was the mentality we had. And as you guys have seen in this podcast, I've got weaponized ADHD, which means I'm super prone to shiny object syndrome. And that's what the Afghan evac was for us, was a shiny object. And God, did we go to the wall on that thing.
That's so funny. Promo code. So for Mother's or Father's Day, right? The promo code can be he came and she didn't. And so like the joke is the joke that I've used for my own promos for stuff is like, yeah, your dad, he came to your baseball games and he came to your, recitals, and sometimes mom had to take care of other things, so she didn't, So that could be one of your first promo. I just gave you one of your first promotions. But yeah, I mean, no, that's incredible. And it we've all had those. I've had those conversations with my business partner when we were on lifeguard detail together. We talked like, that would have been 10, 11 years ago now. We were literally like scheming on, how are we going to like do something with ourselves? How are we going to hit it big? You know what I mean? And so, it's kind of cool. Not to take away from y'all's story, but now I get to just make people laugh and get paid to do that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I love it. And I genuinely love it. But you guys have this incredible thing that you get to do. I mean, how many people have you guys helped at this point?
Oh God! In America, in Afghanistan, I have no idea. I have no idea. I mean, we worked. I know at the peak of the safe housing in Afghanistan, we had about 650 people in our houses.
Oh my, that's incredible!
And there were a lot that like rode. So the number's bigger than that.
Well, they kept having babies too.
They kept, there's girls in Afghanistan named Jessica now.
No,
they named their babies after.
That's incredible.
Yeah. We got a Shia Hazara girl that we're putting through college in Memphis.
She lives in her house in
basically
Memphis.
our ninth child.
Is beautiful. And what are these houses, like the house in Memphis? What, like, can you describe it for me?
So she lives in the house we live in. We rent that house, but it's a former drug house. I mean, it's in the ultra hood.
Sure.
We offered to let this girl come live with us in Georgia. This is so profound. I wish I could convey how profound this was when she said it. She's 21 at the time, I think. And she said, no, Georgia is luxury and Memphis is humanity. I'm staying here.
Wow.
And if you knew her journey, which I can't tell until all this immigration bullshit goes away, but if you knew her journey and you could understand her heart anyway,
Yeah.
we'll have to tell that story one day.
She's a selfless person.
Incredibly
Absolutely.
selfless and just so grateful for anything and everything you do for her. So the majority of our houses in Memphis, you remember me talking about the empty lot I woke up in on Wilbur Street? It was next door to the trap house, 1428 Wilbur.
Oh, really?
You know, we'd gone and done all this cool guy stuff around the world. And I guess we were feeling kind of full of ourselves. And we decided, this is in 2022, 23.
23, I think.
We decided,
No, 22.
we decided we were going to go back to Memphis and get her sister and her brother-in-law and their 2 kids out of the situation they were in. I'm not going to put their business out there, but we took kids and fostered them in Georgia over the summer while the parents got the help they needed. And we moved them to Georgia. And so the day we went back to pick them up from rehab, we decided we were going to go visit our old trap house. Probably a dumb idea.
Yeah.
But, you know, we were prayed up. We were deep in recovery at this point in time. We'd already done all this, you know, seemingly impossible stuff. And we pulled up to the trap on Woodward Street. And the same people were sitting in the same spots, smoking the same dope.
I mean, that's kind of a metaphor. You
Yeah.
know, it really is like
It was
they
like nothing
stayed
had
where they were
changed.
at
Yeah.
while you guys were improving.
Yeah.
And there is a particular girl who cried the first time she saw me sober. And this is before I hit rock bottom, but like the girl always saw the good in me. And I'm looking at her hitting a pipe in the same chair she was in when I left Memphis 3 years prior. And I'm like, Jess, we have to shut the house down.
Yeah.
And that sounded nuts, but we did it. We ended up buying that trap house. Today it houses a girl who has gotten custody of her kids back. Like
Oh, my
it's
God.
been, and we've
That's
done
incredible.
So we've repeated that process a few times. So these houses, they're in the hood. But when you walk inside them, it's like an HGTV renovation. I mean, like,
Really?
we go all out because I'm not trying to flip them. I
Like
don't care.
Extreme Makeover Crack
Oh
House
yeah,
Edition.
yeah, 100%. Like we're turning crack houses into crack homes, baby.
And we don't have anything.
We don't
And-
half-ass anything.
I want to know, Jessica, how has the nonprofit work impacted you, your recovery, all of it?
Oh, it has impacted it incredibly. I don't even think I would be where I'm at, like mentally and emotionally, spiritually, any of that, without all the work that we've done, because addiction's a very selfish disease.
Yeah, yeah. That's
And-
so common. That's the most. So when I started, I went to a group, you know, when I realized that I had an issue, and the guy was basically like, hey, you got here like before you fell super hard, right? He said, so some of these stories are going to be pretty shocking to you. He said, but don't look for the differences, look for the similarities. And so like, that's what I did. And the feeling and the qualities that like, it almost brings out like, and I hate using the term narcissist because I think it gets thrown around too much these days, but it almost brings out like these narcissistic, selfish traits.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sorry I cut you off, so please continue.
No, you're good. But I was an extremely selfish person, which is weird because I'm actually a very giving person at the
you
same
get that energy
time.
from you.
And so like I even went to medical school because I wanted to help people. But when you're in your addiction, you are all that matters.
Yeah.
That next fix is all that matters. And I had been in addiction for 20 years. So I was a very selfish person. And when I finally took all of that energy and turned it into purpose and turned it into helping other people and not just normal people in America who are just, and I don't want to sound bad saying this, but dude, we're entitled in America.
Yeah, yeah.
Like there's a lot of that we don't need and we think we need it. And then you go and you look at people in Afghanistan and you look at, you know, some of the people in Ukraine and all of the stuff that has been happening, and it really opens your eyes and it broadens a lot of perspective. And, you know, that I had seen things I never thought I would see, and I would hear things that I never thought I would hear. And just these situations that we would be having to face with these people that are literally running for their lives. and it opened your eyes a lot. So it's helped me kind of focus on a much broader spectrum.
It helped you focus on a broader perspective on, other things.
Yes, and I will say this, and I think it's because of my mom. I don't trust women, and I'm not very good with women.
Really?
But being raised like that with your mother who's supposed to love you, I think that's a normal response. But doing this work, I've started getting closer to women. I've started understanding them a little bit better, and especially with the houses that we do now with the trafficked women, and having to hear a lot of their stories, and how they grew up. It's opened my heart a little bit more. So that's always, I'm a guy's guy. I'm always with the guys. And now it's starting, they're endearing me a little bit more to them, to the women's side. So that's helped a lot because I have daughters of my own.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of kids, man. So it's good to when you grow up the way I did, you have to have this hardened facade so nothing can hurt you,
Right.
And that's the way I grew up. Like my entire life, nothing can hurt me. I was like a tiny little inside, but like on the outside, I'm like, you can't do to me. And that is starting to strip away that outer armor. And I think that has been huge, especially for my kids, because you can't go through life like that with kids, like you're Billy. You have to be comforting and you have to be compassionate. So this job has really kind of started breaking me down, but in the best way.
That's so incredible. God, you guys have such an amazing story. I do have to ask, so why did you get involved in Afghanistan specifically?
I got tricked into it. Yeah, I got tricked into it. This former Marine Corps Intel NCO named Jack Britton, he was volunteering with an NGO at the time who was sending people over to do the evacuation at HKIA. And he hit me up thinking I was Black Rifle Coffee. And then I was like, no, I'm Black Rifle, the data guys.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you want to do something crazy? And I had my 16-year-old in the car with me, the one that's 21 now, or how old was he? He was 16 at the time.
I think so.
Anyway, so it's like a challenge. I can't say no, I don't want to do something crazy because my kid's listening. And I was like, of course, yeah, I love crazy. Let's do it. What are we going to do? And he's like, I'm going to call you at 7 o'clock in the morning. We're going to get some people out of Afghanistan. I'm like, well, hold up now. You said what? She was like, no, you already committed. We're good. I'll call you tomorrow. I was like, all right. So he ended up having us locate some missing people using some breach data sets and some open source stuff. And I ended up being good at it.
Wow.
And he sent me a list from a lieutenant general of 12 families that were missing and in grave danger, and he wanted us to help find them. And the first family I called, I have a soft spot. I've always had a soft spot for special needs kids.
Really?
And this family had a 2-year-old girl with cerebral palsy, and I could not figure out a safe way to get her through the crowds to the airport. And so I'm already like emotionally invested in this one.
Yeah.
Not only did I find them, I've been able to make contact and talk to them. So I started going down the list, and the next family, we went through some breach data, and I found an American phone number that was linked to one of their social media or email profiles. I forget what it was. Made contact with the guy. He's a linguist at Fort Bragg. He was the brother of the principal on this other family. And so he was able to call on three-way, and we translated. I was able to coordinate getting them inside the wire at the airport. They got on a plane. I saved 11 lives. It took me all of 10 minutes. And I was addicted right there. Boom.
Yeah.
Like, I am now hooked on this. I'm going to trick my wife into doing it with me. Next thing I know, like, people in these chats are talking about the legality. Like, we need safe houses. After the bombing off at Abbey Gate, we couldn't get anybody else in the airport.
Sure, yeah.
So we did a lot of the airport calls in the beginning. We ended up in touch with the 82nd Airborne and the Marine Corps inside the airport. And just all this crazy weird happened. I'm dealing with people I have no business dealing with, like JSOC and like, I don't even know. Like, it all seemed to make believe. But then everybody, we figure out we need to start getting safe houses. And well, hell, I mean, I just came off the streets less than 2 years ago. I don't really care if it's legal or not. What are
Yeah.
they going to do to me if I rent a house in Afghanistan?
Right.
You know? So next thing I know, we were responsible for the safe housing of a bunch of Afghan special operators, to include, believe it or not, one of the first TERPs America ever had in the global war on terror.
No kidding.
How up is that our government left this guy and his whole family? Like, I mean, let's be honest. Like, how jacked up is that? I'll take it a step further. How ridiculous is it that a crackhead is now responsible for ensuring the safety of this man and his family? Not to mention several others who worked for agencies, so CIA.
Based on what you guys told me, I'd want crackhead energy guarding me.
So you're 100% right about that, right? Like, we don't slow down.
And you're relentless.
We are
Yes.
okay. An addict's least favorite word is no.
Oh,
Right?
yeah, God.
No only means I haven't. You don't understand what I'm asking you, right? So
Yeah, because you're not asking if you can do it. You're informing that you're
this is
going
what's
to
about
do
to
it.
happen.
Yeah.
How do I do it without getting in trouble?
Yeah.
Like, and we all knew we were going to get hauled in front of Congress one day. I did end up getting that. That did happen. Wasn't in trouble though, thank God. Like, we were 3 years clean, and I'm submitting written testimony to
Yes.
the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Like,
Yeah.
Scott Mann and Tyler Vargas Andrews are sitting there at the little bit. It was wild.
Yeah.
Like, all this. I'm honestly convinced, and this is going to sound like a joke, but I'm partially serious about this. Like, I think when they fired up the CERN Large Hadron Collider over in Switzerland, you know,
Yeah.
like the particle accelerator, I think it kicked us into an alternate universe. Like, I think it had to have.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a beautiful segue into what I was going to ask Jessica. So, Jessica, and this is a completely random question I literally just thought of. At the depths of where you were, did you ever imagine where you would be today?
Oh God, no, not at all. Because we were pretty low.
Yeah.
We were very low, and I had never thought that it would be anything like this. And before I got with Ben, I was with some guy that, like, he could barely keep a job. You know, I'm a felon for theft. You know, like, I had no good direction that
Yeah.
I could ever see myself going. And then I got with Ben, you know, he's got his businesses. And I'm like, oh, I actually am a good worker, you know, and we would check that out and I could work. And, you know, since I've been an addict for so long, I didn't know, or since I was an addict for so long, I didn't know what I could actually do. I didn't even know who the hell I was until I got clean. So I get clean, I start figuring out little things about myself. I'm like, oh, I can do like really good work, and I'm really fast at what I do, and I'm, you know, good at detailing. And so as I'm going through this, I'm just learning more and more things about myself, which is really weird to be like 37 years old and not know who the hell you are.
Yeah.
So as I'm going through this and I'm going through the Afghanistan thing and everything else, I'm quickly picking up little things. And I never thought that I would be. And I blame it on Ben, because he's the visionary and he's like, we're going to do this and we're going to do it good. And I'm like, well, yeah, we
He's
are.
the idea guy and you make it happen.
Yes. And
Very accurate.
and I didn't even know that that's who I was till I was
Yeah.
kind of thrown into it. And we do it, and we do it well. And I never thought that we would be anywhere like this. And I will add this, though, our crackhead energy and all of the things that we had to do in the street to get what we needed
Yeah.
and get, you know, thing A to place B.
Yeah.
That helped in the Afghanistan stuff too, because, you know, when we would have roadblocks or something, we'd be like, okay, well, what would we do on the street?
Yeah.
We would find somebody to drive here. And, you know, because we had AUP officers, we had like these women that were hiding out, and they couldn't leave their place. They had no food. They had nothing. And we would have to figure out, you know, who can we find? Who can we have be a driver that can pick up this stuff and take it to this house so these women won't get slaughtered for leaving? And so we've, you know, all these little things that we have figured out and gathered during our addiction days
Yeah.
have actually helped forward this mission, especially for Afghanistan, but also in all the other things. So I never thought that I would be here, but all the little things that we did in our addiction have actually helped kind of further this mission.
You guys have a truly incredible story, and now you've taken this energy that you guys possessed, you know, during the worst period of time in your life. You've applied it to what seems like uncountable positive things. Can you take me through some of these projects that you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started Flanders Fields to help vets, get sober, get off of dope. And quickly got pulled into the side quests in Afghanistan, Ukraine, Haiti, Mexico, and all that stuff. As we're doing all this work, and really as we started going back to the streets of Memphis, we realized there's a lot more than just veterans that need help.
Yeah.
And it was getting really frustrating every time I'd go, like Task Force Lahaina when we worked the Maui fires, or Robb Elementary. I worked 17 of the funerals at Uvalde. Trying to find a veteran that was impacted so I could justify spending Flanders dollars on the mission. That felt dirty. I didn't like that.
Sure.
So we started the second nonprofit called We Fight Monsters, which is essentially the exact same thing as Flanders, just without the veteran qualifier.
Sure.
So we do have 2 501c3s, so that we don't have to restrict our housing to veterans only. We Fight Monsters is doing the buy back the block stuff. So where we're shutting down dope houses. We've shut down 4 fentanyl trafficking operations now, and 1 human trafficking operation without a gun or a badge. Well, that's a lie. I always have a gun, but without a badge, and I haven't used my gun. So
No kidding.
we're having to do this, like leveraging human connection at every step of the way. We are involved in multiple for-profit businesses. We've not figured out how to get grant funding, and we don't have corporate sugar daddies. And I think part of the problem there is, like, I'm a crackhead, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's our whole existence. Why are you going to cut a giant check to a crack? Like, I get it, So, and it's honestly more fun to have to go create new adventures to fund the mission anyway. It's stressful at times because we've spent probably $2 million in Memphis.
No
give or
kidding.
take.
Restoring the crack houses.
Well, not just restoring them. Like, we're helping dope boys start businesses. We're creating safe houses for women and kids. Like, we're doing a lot. It's not just shutting down and renovating housing. But we've had to raise every dime of that money on our own, or make it and give it to our own nonprofit. And it's frustrating because if you're looking at the grant funding that's going out in West Tennessee, like, there's orgs that really haven't moved the needle that are getting 8 and 9 figure checks that haven't done as much as we have. Like, I've shut down 4 fentanyl trafficking operations. That's huge.
Yeah.
We've gotten 450 plus people off the streets and back into the workforce. To say that another way, I've taken 450 people and they've stopped committing crime and they're paying taxes now.
Yeah.
Like, these are value propositions that I feel like should really resonate with the city or county or state or even the Fed. I mean, Department of Justice, maybe. I don't know.
And I'll add in there too that you can't just go into a trap house and be like, we're going to take it, you're over, you got to go. Like, you have to create these relationships and you have to have this human connection. So we don't just go do that. Like, we'll have huge events for the entire hood. I mean, like, we'll feed like 1,000 damn people or more. So we'll have events for Thanksgiving. We'll have events for, Christmas, where we give away thousands of toys. All of that costs money.
Yeah.
So it's not just, taking over a dope house. Like, we have to gain the trust first. And that takes money. And that's a huge thing that a lot of people don't realize. They're like, oh, well, we can give you money for this and that. But, well, they don't, because we don't know how to do the grants yet. But,
We're learning.
But we're learning. And sorry, I just interrupted you. But I did want to say that. Like, we don't just go and break down the trap houses. Like, we have to create connections. That takes time. It takes money.
And then you have to create the follow-on conditions.
Yes.
Yeah, and the follow-on's huge. That's something we learned during Afghanistan. You can't just evacuate somebody and be like, okay, good luck in America.
Right, yeah.
Like, there's
Be free.
lot. Right. And so the follow-on wraparound services, they like to call them in the nonprofit space, is huge. It's also how we're getting... I don't want to shut down a dope house and just have it moved to the next block over. Like,
Sure.
I'm trying to stop the suffering.
Yeah.
You
want to really address the problem.
We want to fix the problem. Exactly. I'm convinced that the reason Memphis, Tennessee is America's deadliest city is because of the prevalence of dope and addiction and economic insecurity and the lack of economic opportunity. We can go on and on.
100%.
Reasons. Until you address every one of those things, the problem's not going to change. So we're trying to flip the dope boys to our side. We're trying to flip the pimps to our side. We're trying to get the prostitutes clean and having jobs. We're trying to get the junkies clean and have jobs. And all of that takes a tremendous amount of time and effort. Now, I don't take pay from the nonprofit,
Sure.
nor will I ever. So I don't get paid for doing this work that I spend 18 hours a day doing, which presents some challenges.
Yeah.
So we're, Black Rifle pays most of the bills, but sometimes it doesn't. And so we have to figure out other ways to make money to keep the rest of this going. The stress we literally work 18 hours, 16 hours a day. We'll stop for 2 with the kids, and we don't sleep much, There have been times that I think it has gotten closer than it should have to impacting my recovery.
Yeah.
Because historically, like, the way I deal with anything I don't like is to drink. And I've come really close to, I won't say I've come close to crossing that line and like I've come close to picking up a drink, because I haven't.
Yeah.
But I have come way closer than I should have to putting myself at risk of that. Burnout's a real thing,
Oh, God.
And
Especially for people like you guys.
Right, compassion fatigue is a real thing too,
Yeah.
and I think we're kind of going through that again right now. Sometimes it feels like we're doing more enabling than we are problem solving, and it's like a delicate dance. The work we do is, like Jess talked about, it is very much part of our recovery.
Yeah.
But at times I feel like it can become detrimental to her, if that makes sense. Like it's almost a double-edged sword is not the right term. It's a blessing and a curse, I guess we could say. And since everybody's addiction or alcoholism is so different, there's no set formula for how to case manage any of this.
Yeah.
What works for, we're a great example of that. Like, you saw a problem and you addressed it. I'm a slow learner.
Well, also now you're total abstinence, and I do have a couple drinks every once in a while.
And so it's a spectrum. Recovery is a spectrum. Now, everybody in the recovery community is going to hate to hear me say that, but I know plenty of people that can use cannabis, that can use psychedelics, that can have a drink responsibly. I just know I can't. The only thing that works for me, because believe me, I have tried every other way. The only thing that works for me is total abstinence. And that brings me back to the point I was going to about all the things we're involved in.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would be nice to be able to have a drink and just not worry about shit. But here's the thing. I know for me, if I have a single sip of alcohol, everything that we have talked about, everything I've built, everything I've accomplished, and everything I've
All
done,
goes up.
it'll be over with in a matter of hours. I'm not even talking days or weeks. Like, if I have a drink right now, I'm going to find the trap house here in Durham. I promise I will. And I'll be smoking crack before the day's over. Like, it's that fast. We've proven it, you know? So have we shifted addictions? Absolutely. And I think that's an okay thing to admit.
I mean, when it's such a positive thing, is it, I mean,
What's the downside?
I don't know that I see the negative. But Jessica, so, I mean, has there ever been moments where you were like nervous he was getting close to the line again? Like, given what you went through, that, and
Yeah, because he's too nice. He's the nice one, and I'm so.
She's your everything person.
She really is.
So I have to cut him off. I have to cut other people off.
Yeah.
Because he's such
He'll
a giving
say yes to
person.
everybody?
Yes, he's a yes dude. He just wants to say yes, and I don't necessarily want to say he's a people pleaser,
No,
but he's a
that's
people
fair.
pleaser.
That's fair.
And he just wants to make everyone happy. And so I will see this pattern happening, and I'll be like, no, Ben, like, this doesn't need this money. Do not do that. And so, like, for a little while, it started messing with our marriage a little bit because we were starting to have fights over this. And I mean, and obviously with all the stress, this is a high stress job, a high stress mission that we're doing. Of course, there's going to be a little bickering back and forth, but when I see him giving and giving and giving of himself, and there's no time left for me and no time left for the kids.
Yeah.
He's on his phone constantly, dealing with Ukraine or dealing with Haiti or dealing with people in South Memphis. And, we would have like the women that live in our house, which are, a lot of them are ex-prostitutes. They're used to calling men for their problems. They're, that's a normal thing for them. And they would be calling Ben. And I'm like, no, you need to call me. And so, that would happen. And he'd be like, it's okay. She knows. And I was like, no, she doesn't know. Like, this needs to be addressed. And you cannot say yes to everybody.
Yeah.
But I would just see him slowly going down and down and down. And like his energy levels, his
demeanor,
attitude,
everything, his
personality.
attitude. He wasn't
like
happy
giving
anymore.
tree.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I
Well,
started-
there's only so much.
Yeah.
There's only so you're human.
Well, and the realization, it's not just bad for me, it's bad for them too. Like, I'm not doing them any favors
Yeah.
when that is enabling. And so we had to learn where that line was. And it's
Yeah,
different with
yeah.
every client.
I'm sure you're continually learning.
It's
Yes.
constant, dude. It's constant.
We're still
Yeah.
learning.
Still learning.
You guys have told such a remarkable, incredible story. And the way, I want to give both of you the opportunity to speak directly to the audience, say anything that you want to say. But I do want to say, we, the three people at this table, are a really great example of the spectrum. We've got people here who are incredibly successful, but fell, really far. No matter how far you feel you've fallen, you can always bring it back. I promise you. And Ben and his wife Jessica are beautiful examples of that, and they are now changing the lives of literally thousands of people, probably indirectly millions of people. I would wager a guess. Ben, is there anything that you want to say to the audience?
Life is going to have a ton of ups and downs. It's going to suck a lot, and it's going to be great a lot. And I would just encourage everybody out there not to get too comfortable in either one of those spaces. All right. When you have successes, do not let them go to your head. I have to constantly remind myself I am still just a crackhead from South Memphis. It doesn't matter what table I'm sitting at. It doesn't matter who I'm rubbing elbows with. At the end of the day, I'm just still a broken dude who has found hope and healing in the service of other broken people. And I think that while my story is extreme and unique in some ways, that arc is not unique. Mm-hmm. That's common to all of us. We're all going to go through things we don't like. And what I would encourage anybody out there to do, whether you struggle with drinking or anything else or not, is lean into those uncomfortable things, especially when something like breaks your heart, the things you don't like to look at, the things that make you scroll faster when you're on social media because you don't want to deal with them. Pay attention to that. There's something there. And if you're anything like me, I think what you're going to find when you lean into those things that break your heart, you're going to figure out why God put you on this earth. You're going to find purpose. And if you start moving towards those circumstances, those situations, those crises that really bother you, and you start trying to make a tangible, real-world change in those, however small it may be, you don't have to go try to shut down dope houses. I mean, you could just go try to volunteer in a hurricane zone or something. Whatever it is for you, you're going to realize you're not alone. And there are a lot of other people that already know how to move the needle in really big ways. And you can go align yourselves with those people and start building a life based around a purpose bigger than yourself. Because at the end of the day, that is the measure of a good life. How much have you impacted the lives of others around you in a positive, meaningful, lasting way? We are not the sum of our mistakes. I have done some really jacked up things in my past. I have hurt a lot of people. I have built and destroyed great things. I have been a horrible steward of things that God entrusted to me. But here I am. I mean, you can come back from these. Don't let those things define you. You learn from the things that gave you scars. The scars are only proof that you survived. Let's all go be generous with our scars and put them into the service of others. The end. Thanks for attending my TED Talk.
I really appreciate it, Ben. Jessica, do you have anything you want to say to the audience?
I do, but I don't know. I was listening to you because that was really good, and I forgot to think about my own thing. But don't waste your suffering. I will say that. Maybe you went through some bad things. Good. Use it. Don't sit there and wallow in your victimhood, because I've seen that a lot and it gets you nowhere. If you've been through something, use those lessons. Use that horrible thing that you went through and grow from it and help others grow from it. Mm-hmm. Because I really think, I'm not going to say we're all supposed to go through bad things. That's nobody wants to go through bad things. But if it happens, sitting there and feeling sorry for yourself is not going to do anything. And it's certainly not going to make you look any better. So take those lessons and push them forward, pay them forward, be of service, be a listening ear to somebody. Start a nonprofit with it. And it doesn't have to be huge leaps and bounds. You don't have to go, shut down trap houses or anything like that. But sometimes giving a simple smile to a crackhead sitting on the street matters, because we are all human beings. All humans want to feel accepted and loved, and they need that human connection. So don't go into stigmas. Don't worry about anybody else. Just be of service. Use what you have learned and pay it forward to make the world a better place.
That was incredible. Thank you guys so much for your vulnerability, your candor, and everything you shared with us today. I am honored to have met you. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
This is Check Your Six Pack, a veteran podcast done in conjunction with the Center for the Study of Traumatic Stress and Uniformed Services University. We just spoke to Ben Owen and his wife, Jessica. They went from crack houses to Congress. Well, testifying before Congress. Are you going to do a political run? Because that's your political slogan for sure.
I would make a terrible politician. I'm too honest. I'm too blunt.
Thank you guys so much for being here with us today, and we will see you next time.
Welcome back Behind the Beakers. I'm Dr. Sarah Maggio.
And I'm Kelly Huber.
I am absolutely amazed and humbled and inspired by Ben and Jessica Owen and all of the fantastic things that they've done to bring about real, impactful, and positive changes in this world.
Their strength, their warmth, their kindness, truly, truly amazing. And I want to echo the powerful message of purpose, hope, resilience, and service. Ben emphasized that life is full of highs and lows, but we can't let our mistakes define us.
And Jessica's encouraging message of turning pain into lessons learned and using that as motivation to do good and to be kind.
Both of them highlighting that healing and purpose come from connection, service, and refusing to let mistakes or trauma be the final word.
And we hope that we can help Ben and Jessica in their mission to break the stigma by providing some scientific context to the vicious cycle of addiction and explain some of the mechanisms underlying what Ben describes in his journey as losing control over his choices.
Time to go 110% on some neuropsychopharmacology.
My favorite.
Now, Dr. Maggio's no 68 X-ray, but she does know brains.
And Kelly knows drugs. Because of her background in pharmaceutical sciences. All right, let's start with the binge intoxication stage. Alcohol and other addictive substances increase the activity of dopamine, the reward neurotransmitter, and also opioid peptides.
Opioid peptides are your brain's natural painkillers. Things like morphine, heroin, and fentanyl all mimic the actions of opioid peptides.
An opioid peptide that you may be familiar with is endorphin. Yep, the same one you get from working out. Increased activity of dopamine and opioid peptides produces strong rewarding signals and trains your brain to want more.
And over time, repeated activation can change the circuitry in key areas of the brain, kind of like a mutation.
Oh yeah, mutations, like flying or laser eyes or super strength.
More like the ventral striatum, which processes reward, emotion, and motivation.
Or stretching your limbs, or talking to fish, or super speed.
No, I think you've got the wrong kind of mutation. We're talking about changes to the dorsal striatum, an area key for learning and habit formation. So what was once a voluntary and goal-directed behavior turns into a habitual, striatal-driven pattern where there's less control.
Your brain starts running it like a drill sergeant.
The next stage is withdrawal. When drug levels fall, negative physical and emotional symptoms like stress, irritability, and loss of motivation start to kick in.
It's that pesky extended amygdala again. That brain region that integrates stress and anxiety. And I don't know who invited her.
So instead of drinking or using to feel good, it's to stop your hair from hurting and feeling like absolute garbage.
This leads us to the next stage, Preoccupation and anticipation. This involves a distributed network, the prefrontal cortex, basolateral amygdala, hippocampus, and insula.
Check your six, people. She's going full nerd.
I can't help it. Brains are exciting, and my dopamine is kicking.
Don't make me get the serotonin.
Fine. Then you tell them about the glutamatergic projections.
Perfect. Preoccupation and anticipation. The brain shifts into planning mode, except alcohol starts dictating operations. You start to make up reasons to drink and build routines that allow you to drink more frequently.
This isn't about weakness or lack of willpower. This is about the circuitry of the brain changing to encode drug cues, contexts, and stress responses. And this is what fuels craving and relapse, even months or years after abstinence begins.
That's why a smell, a place, or just a bad day can kick the door wide open for relapse. The wiring doesn't just reset because you white-knuckled a few weeks.
It can take a long time to get back to baseline, but you've got to start somewhere. But before you quit cold turkey, we should talk about delirium tremens.
Ben mentioned delirium tremens. DT occurs when someone who has been drinking heavily for a long time suddenly stops drinking.
When alcohol is consistently present in your body in high volumes, like Ben's 2 bottles of scotch a day habit, the brain and the body try to adapt to stay alive. But this becomes the new baseline, and the body's ability to function will depend on the presence of alcohol.
This takes the form of changes in central nervous system regulation, affecting breathing, heart rate, and other vital functions. The CNS will speed up to counteract slowed breathing and heart rate that result from alcohol, creating a new baseline.
When there's suddenly no alcohol in the body, this can lead to dangerous physical effects, like a fast heart rate, hallucinations, seizures.
This is why it's important to seek medical care to assist in quitting. There are medications available that will allow the body to safely accumulate to the absence of alcohol.
Bottom line, long-term heavy alcohol or drug use rewires your brain's reward, stress, and decision-making systems.
Understanding that wiring is the first step towards breaking the cycle.
Consider yourselves trained and release. Now go hydrate.
And beer doesn't count.
Under extreme stress, your teammate can freeze up, placing themselves and your team in greater danger. On surveys with soldiers who served in combat, more than 40% say they witnessed one of their teammates freeze up in combat. So what can you do if this happens to someone on your team? Take a couple of minutes and learn iCover, a rapid, easily fielded technique for helping your battle buddy get back in gear. Click the link below and never leave your teammate behind.